Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha. I'm a reporter and analyst for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. The Lakers won Game 6, 98-78 to advance to the Western Conference semifinals. They will play the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder in round 2. Game 1 is on Tuesday, so the Lakers have a few days to return to LA, get some rest and recovery, and also get to work. They need to start preparing for OKC tomorrow, or really starting in a few hours on the flight home. But remarkable win for the Lakers. This was the most convincing win for either side in the series, in my opinion. The Lakers were down 16-11 midway through the first quarter. And from that point on, they just dominated the Rockets. They had an extended 27-3 run there from about the 5-minute mark of the first quarter into the second quarter. And outside of like another little rough patch in the second quarter for a couple minutes where they had a couple turnovers, Houston went on a little run. This was basically as close to a perfect game as possible from LA. It was never in doubt once LA got up by double figures. They were up by 18 at halftime. They extended the lead immediately in the third quarter, and they cruised to a convincing 20-point lead, 20-point win, rather, and just an incredible first-round series for LA based on no Luka Doncic, no Austin Reeves until Game 5. They entered the series, depending on where you looked, somewhere between a -600 to -900 underdog. Everybody, including yours truly, picked the Rockets to win this series, and the Lakers found a way to not only win it, but win it in convincing fashion. And I think really send a message, but also I think regardless, like I want to focus on this moment and LA advancing and just this achievement, because we will have a lot to touch on with the OKC series, but like just LA making round 2 with Luka missing the entire series and Austin missing most of it as well. Just kudos to LeBron and another playoff LeBron masterclass. He was incredible tonight. He was awesome. JJ Redick and the coaching staff, the job that he did in his second playoff series, outmaneuvering Ime Udoka and the Rockets coaching staff, and finding ways to counter some of their success in Game 4 and Game 5. Just all the role players from top to bottom, Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura, DeAndre Ayton, Luke Kennard, Austin Reeves coming back over the last couple games, Jake LaRavia and Jackson Hayes making some big contributions tonight off the bench. Like there was just a lot to be encouraged by, a lot to be happy with coming out of this series, coming out of this game. And job's not finished. The Lakers have the biggest challenge remaining in the playoffs in front of them. If they can somehow find a way to beat OKC, they can beat anybody. Like if they can beat OKC, they can just straight up win the title, because that is the toughest team they will face the rest of the way. So it is going to be a David versus Goliath type matchup in round 2. But the Lakers have shown all season that whenever they are counted out, whenever their back is against the wall, they always respond. That this is a resilient group. This is a group that knows how to handle adversity. And whether it was some of the rough patches earlier in the season and responding with that 16-2 stretch, whether it was losing Luka and Austin in the 3-game losing streak, and then them finding their footing going into the playoffs and then ultimately winning this series, they have responded well all season. They have been at their best when it has mattered most. And this has been a group that has really risen to the moment. And I think that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be celebrated. So it's going to be a fun show. We have a lot to get into, but shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Again, like just, I've really like nothing negative or nitpicky coming out of this game. There's maybe like one thing that we'll touch on, but outside of that, just everything went the Lakers' way tonight. And it was just, I think, a really impressive closeout performance from LA, especially with some of these recent, like we're about to have 3 game 7s in the East, and seeing how some of these and even thinking about the Knicks game where it had felt like that series was close, but when the Knicks started to figure things out, like you just never knew how this game was going to go. And LA, despite a little bit of a rocky start over the first few minutes, they quickly took control of this game. LeBron took control of this game in that second quarter, especially, and they never relinquished it. It was a not wire to wire win, but they dominated most of the game. So let's get into it though. Buha's big picture is LA advances to round 2. And I want to start with JJ Redick and the coaching staff. And this is already going to start bleeding into one of my takeaways. But if you want a snapshot of this series, I think you look no further than the possession battle. And going into this series, the 2 big points of emphasis all week in practice leading into game 1 were turnovers and rebounding. And by game 6, the Lakers, it was only a 1 turnover difference, but it was the first time this series that they won the turnover battle. So they had their series low, 10 turnovers. They won the turnover battle, and they won the rebounding battle by 9, including nearly doubling up the Rockets on the offensive glass, 15-8. They took 9 more shots than the Rockets. So you saw, like, on the one hand, there was this war of attrition element for LA where game 3 started to see some fatigue. Game 4, a lot of fatigue. Game 5 was a little bit better from an energy perspective, but just not quite back to the first couple games. Game 6, they left it all on the line tonight, and they closed it out with a really strong win. But progressively throughout the series, we saw some real progress here where LA won the offensive rebounding battle in each of the last 3 games, and they won the possession battle in the past 2 games. So while they were looking a bit fatigued and battling through just not having the same energy and playing against a younger team, a team with some physical advantages, some athleticism advantages, and that was kind of wearing them down, they also found some things strategically that allowed them to win the margins. And tonight, it's not like the Lakers shot great tonight. They shot 40% from the floor tonight. At the free throw line, it was a mess. I mean, if this was a close game, that could have come into play more. They shot 14 for 24, just 58% on free throws. Another low volume 3-point shooting night, though they did shoot well, but only took 28 threes, made 12 of them, shot 43%. So it wasn't like this was some great offensive performance from LA. Their offense has been in the mud, and that's going to be something to really monitor closely going to the OKC series, because they're not going to be winning those games with 98 points. Like it's going to have to be, and they're going to have to do that against the better defense. So they're going to have to find some ways to generate more points. And I think LeBron having a few days off, Austin having a few days off, Marcus, et cetera, like that's going to help them going into at least game 1. If the game 1 turnaround was on Sunday, it would have almost been a schedule loss, I think, but them having a few days to rest, recover, practice, prepare with film work properly, like I think that's going to bode well, or bode better at least going into game 1. But again, like I mentioned it at the top, like this group's resiliency, their ability to withstand adversity, their ability to shapeshift within games, within the series, and just everyone buying into their roles. Like that was a big talking point for JJ Redick after the game, was the collective of everybody had a moment. Everybody in the primary rotation contributed. Like LeBron, best player in the series, and once again was the best player on the floor tonight. Rui, games 1 and 2, and then tonight, and like his shooting throughout the series and being the primary guy matched up with Amen Thompson and switching on to Alperen Şengün. Rui was great tonight. You can make a case he was the second best Laker tonight after LeBron. DA and his rebounding, his one-on-one defense against Şengün, and even a night like tonight where earlier in the series, I think in game 2 and game 3, when he was not as involved offensively, you saw some of his bad habits and him reverting to not being as physically imposing and not playing with as much energy. Not the case, especially these last couple games. He had 17 rebounds in game 5, 16 rebounds tonight, and was attacking the offensive glass, was being a force inside, screening, rolling, even if he wasn't getting the ball, even if they were switching or sending help. Didn't matter for DA. He continued to battle, and I think showed a level of fight in this first round series that was encouraging, and I think does potentially change how we view him as a longer term fit, or at least a short term fit for LA if he is on the roster for one more season. Marcus Smart had his foibles at times, including in game 5 with the turnovers, but tonight, I mean, a defensive masterclass from Marcus. 4 stocks, took 3 charges, had the jump ball that he forced against Şengün. Şengün got cute with it, decided to not hand the ball off to Amen Thompson, brings the ball up the floor. DA meets him. He tries to take him off the dribble. Marcus lunges, grabs the ball. It's a jump ball. LA ends up winning. And that was a moment where Houston was generating some momentum at that point. They were still not in it, but like they had some life at that point. And that was a big sequence there, because I forgot what happened on offense, but the Lakers had just not scored or turned the ball over. Houston's coming back, and that was a big little that was a swing there that was impactful. So Marcus did not shoot the ball well tonight, and was not as involved offensively, with the ball shifting more toward LeBron and Austin, and LA funneling through their best offensive players. But Marcus, he had the tough task of, he was guarding Kevin Durant when KD played, but he's also been guarding Thompson and Smith and Shepherd, and switching on to Şengün, and just didn't matter what configuration Marcus Smart was in defensively. He's just a winning player who he's just clearly a 16 game player. Like there's no doubt about that with Marcus. He's a foxhole guy that you want. You want to be careful how much you give him the ball, and how a lot of that's just been out of necessity based on who's been out in the hierarchy of the Lakers offense. But with Marcus slotted in a proper offensive role, which is I think his role when the Lakers are at full strength, and then you couple in the defense and the shoot, at least the shooting tonight was 2 for 4 on threes, went 0 for 3 inside the arc. But Marcus is just a winner, and he's been really impactful all series. Austin came back these last couple games, fought to come back and beat his timetable. I think it's been a mixed bag with him, but I do want to give him credit and acknowledgement for doing everything he could to come back early. And tonight in that third quarter started to find some rhythm and get downhill, and him scoring in the pick and roll has not been able to get his jumper yet, and that's going to be something that needs to fall against OKC. Went 0 for 4 on threes, so I think he's 2 for 12 now on threes through the first 2 games back, but 7 for 10 inside the arc tonight, and he really exploited their drop coverage, Şengün's lack of foot speed, lack of rim protection, and he beat him specifically to the rim multiple times and finished. And remember, in the second half of game 5, went 1 for 10, including missing multiple bunnies. And so Austin, the jumper's still coming along. He got targeted defensively a bunch, and I expect that to happen in the OKC series as well. But his downhill ability, the rim pressure, the paint pressure, and his ability to just generate good looks for LA's offense, I think that's going to be an important part moving forward. Off the bench, Jake LaRavia played a solid defense all series, but tonight, hit a big 3 early, had a leak out in transition for a dunk, and just the rebounding, the offensive rebounds, and just being a big body against a team that, like Jake coming in and matching up with some of their second unit guys, I thought was a big key to the bench success at times in this series. Jackson bounced back after a really rough stretch in the series, and I thought his one-on-one defense against Şengün was arguably the best of the series. Maybe you'd have to go back to the first couple games in LA, but his offensive rebounding tonight was big during, he and Jake were, I thought, underrated parts of that 27-3 run. Like LeBron and Rui and Austin and DA, those were the guys primarily scoring and getting most of the usage. But Jake and Jackson, I thought with their defense, their energy, the rebounding, they both were underrated parts of that. Vando was a DNP CD tonight, but he had his moments defensively and on the glass in this series. Bronny, I thought, played really well in the 2 games in Houston, by his standards. And Luke Kennard had a rough close to the series. That was the thing earlier I mentioned that might be my only like negative or nitpick. Tonight went 1 for 6, 1 for 2 on threes, and was really phased out offensively by both teams, by the Lakers in terms of not running as many sets and him not having as many touches. I think, I don't know the touches off tonight, but I think comparing his touches in game 5 to his touches in the previous 4 games, I think it was almost like a third of as many touches. So there was a clear decline with Austin back in the lineup. But even then, Luke got some really good looks tonight and continued to struggle. So after scoring 50 points over the first 2 games of the series, Luke scored 25 points the rest of the series, which is just over 6 points per game. So he was phased out by Amen Thompson in Houston's game plan, plus also the Lakers shifting things a bit offensively. But still, the Lakers don't go up 2-0 without Luke Kennard shooting the way he was shooting and being as much of a factor in those first couple games. And there was real ripple effects the rest of the series in terms of how Houston defended him. Like you would see anytime Luke Kennard would put the ball on the ground, get inside the arc, there'd be 4 Rockets converging on him. So his gravity and his offensive just attention that he commanded didn't always show up in terms of the points and in terms of the plus minus or just in the box score, but it was a real factor. And I also thought defensively tonight, he had a steal and like they did not target him as much, and he I thought held up fine. And then that was really it in terms of like, Nick Smith, Adu Thero, Dalton Connect, they played in garbage time in game 4 and game 6 tonight. But then we have to close it, I think, with JJ Redick and his game planning and some of the adjustments. I thought, like looking back at the game 5 film, the Lakers didn't help as much as it felt in the moment against Şengün, and as much as I'd written in my notes of just like stop over helping against Şengün. But the times they did were very costly. The times they did, Houston made them pay with some back cuts and flashes into the middle and skips to the corner shooter. And Houston was able to generate some really good looks and good offense out of LA, botching the doubles and traps against Şengün. They basically cut that out tonight. Even some of the stunts and digging down against Şengün, it was a lot more just play Şengün one-on-one and force him to beat DA or even beat Jackson. And he got to the free throw line a bunch. It took 10 free throws, but 5 for 12 from the floor, 17 points. Like he's just not the caliber of scorer. And I mean, of course, the Lakers were still like packing the paint relatively, and they were generally swarming him. But in terms of like the aggressive dig downs and helping against him and some of the doubles and traps, like they mixed in occasionally sometimes, but for the most part, they played him more straight up. I thought that was a great adjustment. JJ talked about it after the game where they made a more concerted effort to try to keep their bigs closer to the basket. Even if it like with DA on the floor, it was, he has to guard Şengün. When DA's off, it's if it's Jackson, like let's try to keep him as close to the basket as possible. And again, the taking care of the ball, I thought they ran a nice dose of pick and roll and just some organized offense that got them. Again, the shot making wasn't there, but the offensive process was there. And spamming LeBron in the post, Austin and Marcus in pick and roll with LeBron or DA, getting Rui some deep seal post-ups against Reed in transition, and also making sure to find Rui with the driving kick sets, and also Rui taking those shots because he had been turning those down. And I mean, Rui just shot the leather off the ball tonight. So I think JJ pushing the right buttons to start the series, helping LA get out to the 3-0 lead, and then adjusting as Houston made their adjustments. I think some real growth from JJ going from his first series against Minnesota to his second series. I think he still has some blind spots in terms of trusting the bench and relying a little bit too much on the starters and over taxing them physically. But I think like that's something you can learn and will continue to learn through experience. And if that's the primary thing we're focusing on, and it's not necessarily as much schematics, I think that speaks to JJ's X's and O's acumen. So just a hell of a series for the Lakers. Again, like they controlled this. They were, I think, a couple possessions away from winning in Game 5. Like, especially after rewatching Game 5, I felt better about Game 5, and like they could have won this in 5. And there was a lot of variables we could not foresee. We did not know Kevin Durant was going to miss 5 of the 6 games. I think it would be disingenuous to not at least acknowledge that. And that was a blow for the Rockets side. But look, the Lakers were without Luka for the entire series. They were without Austin for 4 games. And even if KD was out, I think some people would have still favored the Rockets. I mean, the Lakers were actually won. All 4 of their wins were games they were underdogs in. So Vegas and the public continued to favor the Rockets even without Kevin Durant. You could even argue that the Rockets at their best in this series were when they were not with Kevin Durant. Outside of that like first quarter performance that he had, like the highs of the series for Houston were when KD was out. So I'm not going to say that they were worse without him necessarily, or that they wouldn't have been more competitive in this series had he been available. But the Lakers, I mean, it's just tough to make that argument when the Lakers were also without their best player and without Austin for 4 of the 6 games. And just a crazy series at times. And I know a lot of people wanted the Lakers to go to 7 and lose this and become the first team. And LeBron, I mean, I already saw a couple of clips on national shows today talking about how LeBron's legacy would be forever altered if the Lakers blew the 3-0 series lead. Well, as Kanye West once said, guess we'll never know. So let's get into stat of the night. Already touched on it a little bit. This is the stat of the night. The Lakers held the Rockets to a season low 78 points. And think about that, because this Houston team, they are not the 2017 Warriors. They are not the 2005 Suns. They are not the 2024 Celtics. Like, this Houston Rockets team can be offensively challenged at times. But even by the Houston Rockets standards, the Lakers held them to a season low 78 points, which was 13 points fewer than their season low of 91. So that just shows you the type of defensive night that the Lakers had. But then I also think we got to follow up. Series low 10 turnovers for the Lakers, also won the turnover battle for the first time. And then 19 stocks for the Lakers, 9 blocks. Oh, stand corrected. I mixed up the blocks and the turnovers, but look, 13 stocks is still a big number, and 9 blocks for the Lakers is a monster number. So I stand corrected on the 19 stocks. It was actually 13, but I mean, you could also look at the possession battle, taking 9 more shots than Houston, winning the offensive rebounding battle by 7, winning the turnover battle. Like, LA beat Houston at their own game. Defense, offensive rebounding, taking care of the ball. That's how the Lakers won tonight. Then in terms of my 3 takeaways, first one, and this is going to partly lead me into the OKC series, but I think it's LA dominated the possession battle tonight. The Lakers won the rebounding over the past couple of games, just straight up. But they won the offense rebounding in the last 3 games. And I think this is notable because it showed, because those were not strengths of LA necessarily throughout the course of the regular season, particularly the offensive glass, but also, turnovers. They cleaned it up over that 16-2 stretch. But turnovers at times, especially against athletic teams, were issues for the Lakers. But against OKC, the Lakers are going to have to take care of the ball. And I think they actually have a chance to dominate the rebounding battle, especially with J-Dub out. Now, OKC does start two bigs in Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet, and they have scrappy, high energy, high motor guards and perimeter players. But rebounding is an area where, when you've seen over the past couple of years, I mean, even just take Houston, like go back to the first game of the season that went into overtime, Houston was crushing the Thunder on the offensive glass. And I think if you look at the last couple of years and teams that have been able to give OKC some trouble, there are a couple of formulas. Like I kind of look at the Denver formula and I look at the Indiana formula, but Minnesota has been one of those teams. Denver has been one of those teams. San Antonio, I think, is kind of a hybrid in between the Denver and Indiana approaches. But with like the Denver, Minnesota, Houston route, it's more of brute force and size and strength and physicality. With the Indiana route, it's more of that speed, athleticism, turning it into a track meet, having a certain amount of shooting. And I think San Antonio kind of does both with Wemby. They've got the size, and Stephon Castle and some of their, like, they got the size and athleticism and strength stuff, but then they also have the speed and shooting ability that's what makes it such a tough matchup for the Thunder. But LA's progress in the possession battle, I think, is maybe the biggest sign of encouragement outside of LeBron being playoff LeBron, Austin being back, and JJ coaching the series that he just coached. Like those are some top level things. And then we obviously don't know what Luka's status and if he'll be able to return mid-series, late series, whenever. But from like a tactical perspective and an area that I think is going to be paramount for the Lakers, like they cannot go into this OKC series and be losing the possession battle the way they did the first few games of this series. Like that was, I think it was through the first three games, Houston attempted 70 more shots than the Lakers, and LA was up 3-0. That will not happen against the Thunder. Now, the Thunder are not going to hammer you on the offensive glass, so it's like a little different in terms of how they're going to win the possession battle. They primarily win the possession battle with turnovers, where they force the most turnovers in the league, and they're one of the best teams in the league in terms of taking care of the ball. So they typically have a 6 to 12 possession advantage just off of that. They'll have 12 turnovers, they'll force 18 turnovers, they'll force 20 turnovers, and that's how they partly win the possession battle. They also get to the free throw line a lot, and that can sometimes warp how you defend them. But I think LA has a real opportunity here with some of the progress they've made on the offensive glass with DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes, Jake LaRavia, Rui, LeBron. Like, just, I mean, it's been a lot of guys. The crashing, I think I almost, like, I would love to ask JJ this, and we'll hopefully get to ask him something along these lines at practice coming up here. But I almost wonder if, like, part of the Lakers' recent shift in strategy in this series was preparing them potentially for the OKC series. And of course, you don't want to get like too ahead of yourself, but I thought it was interesting that stuff happened after LA had the 3-1 or the 3-0 series lead. And I think that's going to be important, because if they can win the rebounding battle against OKC convincingly, and they can keep the turnover battle at least like neutral or pretty close, I think that's their, I think, entry point into making this a very competitive series and having a chance. Now, the reason why the Lakers lost 3 of those games by 29 plus, one of them they rested guys, so that one I put to the side. But like the 2 games in OKC, they got absolutely waxed, and the biggest issue was LA could barely dribble the ball up the floor and get into sets against OKC's defense. So that is like, and that was with Luka in both of those games. Now you take Luka out, and you saw at times in the series when Houston ramped up the pressure, LA folded, and LA would have these stretches where they, like those second quarter stretches, you cannot have them against the Thunder. If you have them against the Thunder, you go from like a 4-point deficit to a 16-point deficit in like 3 minutes. Like that's what the Thunder do, is even if it's close against them, like that's where, to me, they remind me kind of this, the prime Steph Warriors, in the sense of the Warriors, it would be like you'd be feeling great about a game against the Warriors. You're within 6 points, you're within 8, you're executing your game plan, everything is going great, and especially in those third quarters, they would just destroy you in like a 4-minute stretch where it goes from a 6-point game to a 22-point game, and you're looking around like what just happened. And we saw OKC do that to the Lakers twice in OKC. And to start that most recent game in OKC, 18-4, and then that previous game back in November, it was like competitive through the first half of the first quarter, first 3 quarters of the first quarter. They went on a run to close the first, and they blew the game open in the beginning of the second. So the Lakers, like with OKC, you have to be on high alert the entire game. You cannot have these lapses. If you can have lapse for a possession here and there, right? Like you're going to turn the ball over. You're going to make mistakes. You cannot let them compound. And that's something that LA really has to key in on. And I just say all this to say, like, the possession battle to me is going to be a huge thing in the OKC series. And to LA's credit, they made real progress within this series from the point of getting dominated in the possession battle to start the series to dominating the possession battle themselves to close the series. So that's going to be arguably the swing factor for me in this series, is like, and even if LA wins the possession battle, that doesn't mean they're going to beat OKC. But if they're not competitive in the possession battle, they don't have a chance. Like that's it. If you're giving OKC 15 more shots a game, it's over, especially with just how good they are on both sides of the ball. Like, you need to keep that competitive. And I think LA has done a much better job of that recently. And that is something positive going into the series. Takeaway number 2 is free agent stock report. So this one will be quick, but I mean, I think it's important to take stock with half the roster entering free agency, just like quick stock of where everyone is at. I think for the most part, everyone's trending upward, or I would say the primary free agents, like what I thought of them going into the series versus what I think of them now, basically in line with where they were previously at, or even higher. Like thinking about DA just held up really well against Alper and Şengün, and I thought won several of the games head to head against Şengün, and just like, I mean, was able to stonewall him pretty much one-on-one defensively. Offensively, I think had 3 solid to good performances, 3 subpar performances, but it was more of a mixed bag, I think, on that end for DA, and it continues to be an issue sometimes of him not converting on putbacks, not converting on lobs, bringing the ball down, getting stripped, getting blocked, and that's going to be a real factor for him in the OKC series. But especially looking at the $8 million, like I don't think I'm at the point where I would want to commit to DA being the long-term center. I still think there are other options out there, but depending on how things play out, and if the Lakers potentially have to heavily invest in the wing position, let's just say a wing becomes available that's where most of the cap space ends up going. I think there are worse alternatives than DA being the starting center again. I think the best case scenario might actually be LA getting a better starting center, and then DA and Jackson remaining a 2-headed monster off the bench and having a little bit more of a committee approach. But DA, I think, has like more than did his job in round 1. Rui, I thought the shooting throughout the series, the defense, I thought the middle of the series, like games 4 and games 5, I don't think he was as sharp, although I think that's also a team-wide thing, so I don't want to put that solely on Rui. But I mean, Rui had a really strong series, and I still think if the Lakers are keeping LeBron, he probably fits in more as a bench guy than a starter. But maybe it's one more year as a bench guy, and then eventually he becomes a starter. I don't know. It also depends on the money in where that's at. Marcus, I think, is indispensable. The Lakers have to keep him at all costs. I think you got to be careful how long of a contract you give him. I would probably try to keep it 3 years or less. But Marcus, to me, is, after LeBron and Austin, has to be the biggest priority below those 2 guys. Austin, I think it's too early to make a call on his contract. I mean, I would say it's mixed bag through the first couple games. He did just miss a month. He will have a few days off going into the OKC series. He did not play well against OKC. So this is a huge test for Austin of no Luka to start the series. You are going to be the primary ball handler and the clear number 2 option behind LeBron. I think LeBron will be the number 1 option in the half court. Like this is a big test for Austin. So I don't think he's looked physically right these first couple games, but now he's being thrown into, this is the team that you played 3 times. You had 4 more turnovers in all 3 games. You did not play well outside of, I would say, the first half of that second game in LA, or as the first game in LA technically, but the second game of the season series. Big test for Austin coming up. And I think this is the type of thing that will show you, I don't want to like put too much into it, but it is a big test. Like this is the team you're going to be going through over the next few years if you are committing and building around Luka and Austin. So huge test coming up for Austin. LeBron, I mean, just continue like post Luka and Austin going out, being the number 1 option, and struggled with efficiency a little bit down the second half of the series, but just tonight a masterclass was great. I would say in 4 of the 6 games was the best player in the series by far. I don't think whoever you want to put at number 2 is even close to him. The 1 game KD played, LeBron outplayed KD convincingly. So, I mean, LeBron, I think it's just a matter of what that number is going to be, and assuming he wants to play another year, assuming he wants to be in LA. And then Luke is the one guy who I've done maybe a 360 on. I don't know, but where he was at kind of going into the series and where he's at now, I'm probably in the same place. But I do think there was a gap between like how I viewed Luke after game 2 and how I view Luke after game 5 or game 6. I think there are some clear highs with him that we saw in the first couple games, but I also think there are some limitations to his role at a certain level. And so if Luke is your 7th or 8th man, I think that's probably a more appropriate role for him. But we saw when a team was really able to scheme for him and top lock him and basically just be physical with him off the ball, he wasn't able to get open a lot. He wasn't able to generate the same caliber of looks. And there also was an element of, I think, him starting to pass up shots, starting to look to pass more. But even then, he wasn't the same level of playmaker and facilitator that he was a week ago, at the beginning of the series or at the end of the regular season. So he might be the one guy that I'm still open to keeping depending on the price. But I think, at least in comparison to Marcus and Rui, I think those guys are at a different level in terms of their place on a playoff team and how much money they should be getting this offseason, whether it's from the Lakers or someone else. And then takeaway number 3 is going to be Lakers Thunder. Early thoughts. So my quick thoughts on Lakers Thunder. I will be doing a rewatch over the weekend. I will be rewatching the first 3 games. I'm going to skip the last game because nobody played in it from the LA side. And I will be doing a series preview with Cranjus again Sunday evening. So we will be going live Sunday evening doing our series preview with big Lakers question, big Thunder question, Lakers X Factor player, Thunder X Factor player, statistical X Factor, series X Factor, miscellaneous notes, and then a series prediction. But quick and early thoughts on Lakers Thunder. Let's pull up the schedule actually, because I think the schedule is tough. I'm sure some of you have already seen it, but the schedule does not do the Lakers any favors. So it does do the Lakers, and I'll zoom in here. It does the Lakers some favors in the sense of they get the break between today and game 1. It's not a Sunday game 1, which would have been a really tough turnaround. They might have even had to have flown just straight from Houston to OKC at that point. But they get the Tuesday game 1. So they will return to LA. They'll be off tomorrow. I would assume they practice Sunday and then practice Monday before flying and fly in Monday afternoon to OKC. But it's every other day game 1 through game 5, and game 5, of course, if necessary. Then they get a 2-day break in between game 5 and game 6, and then a 1-day break in between game 6 and game 7. So we saw the first time in this series that the Lakers had a 1-day break was in between game 3 and game 4. And even by game 3, they started to show some fatigue, some attrition. Game 4 was obviously just a rough showing. And then even game 5, they were showing some signs of being worn down. So they get the break going into game 1. But then once game 1 starts, they are thrown into the fire here. And it's every other day, including the travel days. So like in between game 2 and game 3, 1 day, including travel. In between game 4 and game 5, 1 day, including travel. So I do think that favors the younger team in OKC. But the Lakers just dealt with this in terms of having a 1-day turnaround from game 5 to game 6. So you could also say that whatever they did in between game 5 and game 6, you would hope that they can continue to do that in between the every other day nature of this series. But I think that's especially going to test LeBron and Marcus, who I think were two of the guys who started to not look like the same guys in the middle of the series based on the schedule. That they're getting tested immediately starting after game 1. Then in terms of some other thoughts with OKC, I mean, we have the big X factors of, does Luka return at some point in this series? I think for LA to really have a shot to win this series, Luka has to come back at some point. I think there's just a talent and shot making element here that they're really going to be missing without Luka. You also have the J-Dub injury, and I believe game 1 will be about 13 days since he was ruled out with a grade 1 hamstring strain, and he was said to be week to week. So does J-Dub return for game 1? Does J-Dub miss a couple games? And maybe OKC's like, let's see if we're up 2-0 or if it's 1-1. And like, do we need to bring, or maybe even the Lakers are up 2-0, do we need to bring J-Dub back? And they kind of calculate it that way. But those are two significant X factors on both sides of Luka being able to match Shea and be the best player in the series, and then J-Dub being their second best player on paper, and also I think played well against LA in 2 of the games in the season series. I think I am going to rewatch the film, but it's going to be tough to take away too much positively or try. Like, I don't want to take away too much from the film, because the Lakers just straight up did not play well. And if you look at like Luka did not play well in the 2 games. I don't think Austin played well outside of maybe like a quarter and a half in that game in LA. LeBron had some moments in that game. Like LeBron played the best, I think, of the big 3. But I wouldn't say he was like great against the Thunder. And then DA was single digits in all 4 games in terms of points. I thought Isaiah Hartenstein kicked his butt just straight up. The Lakers struggled with Chet at times. AJ Mitchell really cooked them off the dribble. Wallace and Caruso gave them some problems. Isaiah Joe lit them up from 3. So if you watch the season series, I mean, you're thinking OKC is going to sweep them by 20 plus every game. I think the Lakers will be more competitive than that. And I think the Lakers will have a lot of film to digest and look at and be like, this is not who we are. We need to do this at a higher level. But it's going to be interesting to see, because pretty much everyone to a man. I think Marcus, the game in LA, had a good shooting game. Rui had a couple good low volume shooting games. I was going back and looking through the box scores and some of my notes and stuff, and just pretty much no one played well for the Lakers. And I guess, again, the LA game being the closest thing to what this could look like, because there was no Luka, but there was also no Shea. And Shea, I just, it's completely different Thunder team, different Thunder offense. Speaking of Shea, he's been the best player in the playoffs so far. He's averaging 33 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, shooting 55% from the floor. Has not been shooting well on threes, but going from Şengün or Amen Thompson or whoever you wanted to say was probably Şengün, what was the Rockets' best player in the series, to Shea is like multiple tiers of player. I mean, right now, you can make a strong case he's the best player in the world. And is probably going to win a second straight MVP. So Lakers are going to have their hands full with Shea specifically. And I think there will be some similar components to how they defend him with how they defended KD. But I think Shea is a much better passer than KD. And I also think OKC is used to playing with an advantage, and it's going to look much different than Houston. So I think LA can throw in some shocks and blitzes at Shea selectively, especially along the sidelines. But in terms of like the trapping him from 35, 40 feet, I don't think that's going to be an apples to apples defensive game plan for the Lakers. This is a totally different team compared to the Rockets. Like, they are a much better team on both sides of the ball. They're a much smarter team. They're much more connected. They're much deeper. They're quicker. They're more athletic. Like, it's just, it's night and day. So LA I'm really fascinated to see, like, this is the biggest test by far of JJ's young coaching career. And even comparing this to Minnesota or to Houston, like, it's just not really comparable in my opinion. So I'm really interested to see what type of defensive game plan JJ tries to cook up against OKC, because I thought Shea was the best player in the season series against the two sides. I thought he largely did whatever he wanted against the Lakers. So that's going to be something that it's going to be a real challenge for them to try to contain him. But I mean, the biggest thing of all is going to be the ball security. LA in the two games that Shea played in OKC, they just 20 plus turnovers, blown out by 29 plus in both games, not competitive, and they need to handle the ball security better. And I'm looking at Austin, I'm looking at Marcus, I'm looking at Luke, because I expect him to have the ball some as well. I'm looking at LeBron and like the back-to-back 8 turnover games he had in Houston. Lakers can't have that. They will inevitably turn the ball over 12 times, 14 times. Like, OKC is going to turn them over, but you can't be having these 20 plus turnover games, which the Lakers had 3 times in this series. Just far too many. Then possession battle, already touched on that a little bit earlier. I think a couple other things here from the matchup perspective. If we go to, I had a couple things. So someone asked me about outside of turnovers, what are some of the big things? So for me, I noted transition defense, the scheme against Shea, the possession battle, which again, I think LA can hold their own in, if not win the rebounding battle, matching OKC's lineup versatility. So OKC, one of the differences between them and Houston is they're going to go to a 2 big look. I mean, they start a 2 big look with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, but they also can go to a 2 big look with Chet and the second, the center, Jalen Williams, and he's going to space the floor. And he's been playing like sneakily much better over the second half of the season, and become like a real stretch big option for them. And I think like he's a guy that the Lakers are going to have to pay attention to, and that could space you out. He's also a guy that's probably going to get into some that's probably the leading candidate from the OKC side. Him or Dort are the two guys that we'll probably get into it with some Lakers at some point. They got the 1 big look where they could go with Chet, they could go with Hartenstein, they could go with Jalen Williams, and they could also go small. I think they would prefer to go small with J-Dub back, but you can go to some lineup and even with Chet, you could argue like because he can't space the floor, that's almost his own version of like big small ball, but they can throw out some lineups with like a J-Dub, Shea, Dort, Caruso, Wallace, something like that, or throw in AJ Mitchell. And then I think they have to contain at least one of Chet or AJ Mitchell. I expect Shea to have a big series. I think Shea is going to be high 20s to low 30s on like reasonable efficiency. That's just, he's a metronome. He produces at the same level basically against anybody. But the guys that you got to be careful. You can't have Shea drop 30 a game and then Chet's at 22 a game and then AJ Mitchell is at 20, 22 a game. Like that already, 76 points or whatever from just those 3 guys. And that's before we even mentioned J-Dub coming back or Isaiah Joe or just, Jared, like they have so many weapons that I think that they got to cut off one of OKC's limbs. So between the two, I actually think Chet might be the one that might be a little bit easier for LA specifically if you're putting DA on him, and that's DA's primary focus. I'm not saying he could do it. I'm not saying it'll be successful, but I think AJ Mitchell's a little bit more of a matchup problem for LA, just because his speed and power and shiftiness. I think he's a guy that will live in the mid range and be a 3-level guy for OKC. But those are some of my keys just going into this series without diving into the rewatch, without looking at. I watched a couple of the OKC Phoenix games, and similarly, those games kind of all went the same way. They're competitive to start. At some point, OKC just breaks you and blows the game open, and they won 3 of those games by double figures. The 4th game, they won by 9. And so they were the only team in the first round to sweep. Like, they're a pretty good team. So the Lakers, like, this is the biggest test of the playoffs for the Lakers. If they get past OKC, they can beat whoever comes out of San Antonio, Minnesota. I assume it'll be San Antonio, and then they can win the championship. Like, it's that, right? It's, if you could beat that team, it's kind of like picking on the biggest bully at school. If you could take down the biggest bully, you could beat anybody. You might have a bloody nose coming out of the series, but like this is it, right? Like, this is the biggest test. This is Denver did not want this. That Denver wanted to be out of this side of the bracket, and you see what happened. They ended up losing in round 1. Like, Lakers were ready for the smoke, and we'll see starting on Tuesday how ready they truly are for this. But with all that said, about to get into the Q&A. Before we do, quick shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Cozy Earth. I'll be back in exactly a minute. A quick shout out to Cozy Earth for sponsoring today's show. I'm on here talking basketball, watching games, looking at numbers, grinding film. But what about when you need some downtime? You want to be comfortable. You want to be cozy. And that is where Cozy Earth comes in. They got robes and slippers built for all those quiet moments, like relaxing after a long work day or just kicking back and watching a game. And with Mother's Day coming up, this is actually a great gift idea because it's not just a random gift. It's something that she's actually going to use every day. The robes are super soft. They have multiple styles, and the slippers are built to be worn all day, not just around the house for a few minutes. And the best part is you can try it risk-free. They have an 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty, so you're not really taking a risk here. And so if you're looking for a thoughtful gift for yourself or a mother in your life, go to cozyearth.com and use code BUHA for 20% off. That's code BUHA for 20% off. And if there's a survey after you check out, just let them know you came from the show, Buha's Block. Because at the end of the day, home starts with mom. All right, let's get into the Q&A. First one from Jovan Buha's illegitimate child. Hi, Dad, with a waving emoji. Hello. Might have to take a paternity test on that one, but I guess you're old enough to be in the chat. Next one from Jamie. Thank you for the super chat. Belt to ass, you love to see it. We can focus on OKC tomorrow. Let's enjoy our first series win since 23. LFG, and two-way DA. What's good? Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but I'm glad you brought that up. First series win for the Lakers since 2023. They had been... Oh, yeah, well, obviously they made conference finals in 2023, but they went obviously swept by Denver, lost in 5 to Denver, lost in 5 to Minnesota. So going into this series, LA had been just 2-12 over their past 14 playoff games, then go 4-2 in this series and win it. So yeah, just a hell of a moment for the Lakers, and there will be more time to talk about OKC. I did want to preview it a little bit, just give my initial thoughts, but that's why I led with just this moment and how much this means. It's awesome for the Lakers. The Billy0304, thank you for the super chat. Amen on hate watch list. Round 1 win is awesome. Yeah, that was a super dirty play from him. I don't know what, like, already, I mean, grabbing happens in the course of a game, right? Like, so you don't inherently say like grabbing a player or even grabbing a player's arm is dirty, but it actually kind of reminded me of the Rondo play. Remember when not Rondo, excuse me, D Wade did it to Rondo and grabbed his arm and pulled it and hurt Rondo. It was kind of like that. Like he just straight up grabbed Austin's arm with both hands and just pulled him down. And it was a very odd play because again, it's one thing if you're fighting through a screen or you're kind of in like the paint and you're battling or something, maybe you're jostling, you grab a guy kind of to move him or something. There was nobody around. It was just Ahmed Thompson and Austin Reeves, and he pulled him down, and Austin obviously left the game. So I don't think I haven't seen an update yet on anything, but I would assume Austin is okay. But if not, he'll have a few days to get right. Jamie, again, thank you for the super chat. They really thought Braun was going to be the first person ever to blow a 3-0 lead. ... Not my GOAT. Yeah, I mean, so some of the discourse in this first round, I think, has gone off the rails, and it's been a little too much. And certainly, if the Lakers had blown that, it would have just broken the internet. Lakers blowing a 3-0 lead as a franchise, LeBron blowing a 3-0 lead as an all-time great. But as I said earlier, I guess we'll never know. Rando, yo. Appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Mint Millions, thank you for the super chat. Dort is literally a dirty player who injures players. Not funny. Should be kicked out of the league. Yeah, I mean, this is a real concern. I try to be objective. I try to be fair, but he has a growing history of these plays, and it's just even the play he had against Booker. I know Booker ended up being okay ultimately, but there was plausible deniability because he looked away from the play. But if you look at the way he was moving in that play and then the way he swings his leg back, like he didn't need to swing his leg back to move. He saw Devin Booker coming and he swung his leg back, and it was like, if I look away, I'm going to be able to deny that I did this intentionally. And it's just, yeah, I mean, he's a dirty player. There's really no other way around it. Now, I don't think he's intentionally like going into games being like, I'm going to injure player X or whatever. But I think in general, there is some Bruce Brown here. Bruce Brown was also kind of a dirty player, but or is kind of a dirty player. Bruce Bowen, and like there's some Bruce Bowen here. There's some Draymond here. Lou Dort has just some of that. And I know OKC fans get very defensive about it and like to claim that it's just not true, but it feels like any objective observer or anyone who's a fan of the other 29 teams, like unanimously agrees that this dude just continually crosses the line. And with LA having a player coming off of injury in Austin and a player potentially coming off of injury in Luka, I don't think it's like a top line item in the series, but it is a little subplot note of just, does Dort do anything against either of those guys? Cage Britt, thank you for the super chat. DA has been a monster on the glass. Rui, a playoff riser. Nothing but positive stuff to say about both of those dudes. DA was a beast in this series, and Rui, I mean, yeah. Looking at Rui's series, 14 points, 13 points, 22 points, 13 points, 12 points, 21 points for the series, average 16 or 15.8, but we'll round up and say 16. Shot 59% on threes, on 4.8 attempts per game. Really the only thing I could say with Rui that I would like to see more is him shooting even more. I would like to see that with him, he averaged 39 minutes per game in the series, which is wild how much he was playing, right? That's a high number. I would like to see that up to like 7 attempts per game, maybe 8 attempts per game. Part of it's on the Lakers generating those looks for him. Part of it's on Rui having more confidence and just letting it fly. But that's really the only thing. Like, Rui gave you basically everything you could realistically want from him in round one. Same thing with DA, and they both were awesome. Rando continues the super chat into the so appreciate you. Jeffrey J. Cal, thank you for the super chat. OKC minus 15.5 seems high, so I think we'll cover it. Do you think we have a chance to steal game one, as maybe they'll be rusty? Damn, is that the line for game one? That's disrespectful. I'm sorry. I think the Lakers are massive underdogs, but that's like, oof, that's disrespectful. That's a really big line. Wow. Okay. I would have guessed like 9.5. Maybe if you wanted to go into the double figures, 10.5, but 15.5 is like, I mean, that's like a 1 seed versus like a bottom 3 seed in the conference. Like that's a pretty, I mean, that was like LA had that against, that's almost the same as like LA's line against Utah on the final game of the season. I think LA was like 17.5 or something like that. So, and they were going to rest some guys obviously in the second half, but I mean, that's a crazy line. I'm very surprised by that. I think they'll cover that. In terms of, so I'll say, I think I'll say this. I think they do have a chance to steal game one. I think their odds of stealing game one are much higher than they were if it was Sunday. I think if they're playing on Sunday, I think they would have gotten waxed in game one and it just would have been ready to go. I mean, their group, in my opinion, was pretty locked in the first round. Obviously, again, the only team that swept. So I think they have a chance to steal game one. I think it is going to be interesting to see how, like, what the game plan is and how dialed in JJ is able to get that. And I do wonder, for me, I wonder if it's more like, I mean, LA is obviously a big underdog in the game, but if LA maybe, if they lose game one, if we see like some real like some drastic adjustments going into game two, like I think it's going to be that type of series. You might even see some drastic adjustments going into game two, even if you win game one. Like I don't think this is a series where at any point the Lakers can feel comfortable, because I think even if LA was up 3-0 in the series, I still think people would be like, well, now OKC is going to come back and like they'd still be underdogs in game four. So they're going to be underdogs in every single game of this series from like a public perception perspective. And so I think this is going to be like the ultimate test of their focus, their execution, their ability to outthink and outmaneuver. Like, again, I would say outside of offensive rebounding, I don't think there's a thing that Houston does better than OKC. I think OKC's a better scoring team, a better passing team, a smarter team, a better defensive team, better turnover team on both sides. They're just a much higher level team. So like this is going to be a jump up in competition in like a real way that LA has to be prepared for. An NBA enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. Where are you ranking this on LBJ's list of Laker accomplishments? And if you could pick AR or LBJ to play at their offensive ceiling all series versus OKC. Good question. I mean, obviously 2020, and I don't know if we're going like series by series with 2020, if we're just putting 2020, I would put 2020 first, just collectively that run. I would put 2023 second, especially with LeBron. Remember, coming back from injury. I don't think he was ever quite right physically in that 2023 run, but he was still able to be really effective and be, I think, overall LA's best player in the playoffs during that conference finals run. So, I mean, I would say 2020, number one, 2023 number 2. And then, I mean, this is the third time they've gotten out of the first round in the LeBron era. So, I mean, just by nature of that and by nature of who was out for most of the series and who was out for the entirety of the series and how much of an underdog LA was, that this would have to be number 3 in terms of LeBron Laker accomplishments, in my opinion. Now, if he beats the Thunder, I mean, that jumps number 2 easily. Like, I think going to the conference finals and beating the Thunder along the way it doesn't beat the title because the title's a title. Like, you'd have to win the title. If they somehow won this title, that would jump 2020 for me just because of his age and Luka being out and them beating the Thunder along the way. But yeah, I mean, it's probably number 3 for me, unless I'm I mean, he's obviously had like individual accomplishments of breaking the scoring record, breaking the regular season games record, playoff games, or minutes record, and he's had these like accomplishments and achievements. But if we're just talking like Lakers accomplishments, I think it's ultimately the results in the playoffs, and 2020 has to be number 1. Then I would go 2023 and then now. But this one, honestly, even a competitive showing against the Thunder, like if they push the Thunder to 6 or 7 games and lost, I would probably put that even ahead of 2023, in my opinion, because I think if you look at, if we're looking at the teams, like you look at, they played Memphis in round 1, 2023, Golden State in round 2, and then Houston in round 1 this year. OKC is like far and away like the best of those 4 teams. So I know some people don't like moral victories. I get it, but like if Luka misses the entire series and LeBron pushes OKC to 6 or 7 as like the guy, I think that is basically on par with beating like Golden State in round 2 in 2023, right? Like it might even be, I'm arguing it's more impressive, honestly, in my opinion, especially factoring he's 41 in year 23. If I could pick one of the two, so this is a tough question because I think I would pick LeBron, because I think LeBron playing at his ceiling is going to be low turnovers and his jumper falling. At the same time, I think if Austin plays to his ceiling and he's taking care of the ball and scoring at a certain level and his jumper's falling, I think it does raise the Lakers' floor a lot, because my fear, I think LeBron has a higher floor than Austin, and or at least playoff LeBron has a higher floor than playoff Austin. So my fear would be, even if LeBron's at his peak, is Austin at the level you need him to be at? Whereas if you get the best version of Austin, even like the not best version of LeBron is still at a pretty high level that, as long as he's like not having a terrible series, it might be like the best version of Austin mixed in with just like the average, like great version of LeBron is enough to really have a competitive series that goes 6 or 7 games. And who knows, maybe the Lakers pull off the upset. If it's like LeBron is great, but Austin has a rough series, then it's kind of like, okay, well, the Lakers are dead in the water there, because I think, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think to truly win this series without Luka, they're going to need both of these guys at their offensive ceiling. Like, I think Shea's the best player in the series, and that's no shade at LeBron. It's just Shea is about to win his 2nd MVP. He's in his prime. LeBron is not. At their peaks, it's LeBron. I don't think it's close in their peaks, but 41-year-old LeBron versus 27-year-old Shea. Right now, I would take 27-year-old Shea. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. But I think LeBron is clearly the 2nd best player in the series. And then if Austin can somehow be the 3rd best player in the series and outperform Chet or J-Dub or AJ Mitchell or whoever, that goes a long way in LA having a real shot here. I mean, you could also apply the same logic to Marcus or Rui or DA, but like I think it's a longer shot that those guys outplay Chet straight up. I think it has to be Austin being like an awesome number 2 in this series. And if he can't do that, I think the Lakers are going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, if Luka comes back, then everybody's got more leeway, and you hope Luka's at a certain level, and then it's, Austin gets slid down the pecking order, and like it's more the appropriate slotting with everybody. But I think the real answer is both. But if I had to pick, I might go LeBron, because I think LeBron's ceiling is LeBron can outplay Shea. Like I think if you had to bet on who has the better series, I think it would be Shea. But I think LeBron at his peak, at like his peak, can be the best player in the series, and that would give LA a shot to win it. So I guess I would go LeBron, but I do think Austin's gonna have to play well. Rando, I see dead people dancing on the Houston grave and maybe the OKC grave, but let's not get ahead of ourselves yet. Appreciate it. Mint Millions, thank you for the super chat. Is throwing 100 on Lakers finals to win 4K a good bet? I don't bet. I'm not going to advise anybody to how to spend their money. That's just not something I'm comfortable with. However, if you have $100 to play with and you're not going to miss the $100, it's not going to be something that you're kicking yourself about if you spend it. There are worse things to spend your money on or to bet on. So sure. Peter, thank you for the super chat. All credit to LA for the win. If you had told me that LA would get further than Denver, I wouldn't have believed it. Hot take, Udoka stays, Adelman fired. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said here. I mean, so Udoka, I do think Udoka is going to stay, but I think the leash gets, because they have enough built-in injury excuse of, if you're a Houston fan or you're a Houston optimist, you say to yourself, well, we didn't have Fred VanVleet all season. We lost Steven Adams midway through, and we didn't have KD for 5 of the 6 games. If we have KD, maybe we win the series. Or if we have Steven Adams or Fred VanVleet or all 3 of them, maybe we're the third best team in the West behind OKC and San Antonio. Maybe we're the 3 seed and we're advancing to round 2 or whatever. So I think Houston's going to kind of talk themselves into that. So I could definitely see Ime Udoka staying. The Adelman one is interesting. I know he's under a lot of heat right now from Nuggets fans and NBA Twitter. I don't know if he's the guy. I thought he did a really good job last year. Like, he took over late in the season and he got thrown into the fire of that Clippers team that was a really tough 7-game series that I think he outcoached Ty Lue in that series, who's one of the best coaches currently in the league, championship coach. Then they pushed OKC to the brink with Aaron Gordon on one leg and Michael Porter Jr. having one shoulder. So I think like Jokic and Murray get the bulk of that credit, but Adelman was a part of that. So I know they underachieved. I also know Aaron Gordon was out, Peyton Watson was out. And I think while that doesn't offset Ant and DiVincenzo being out, I think if there was arguably any matchup to not have those 2 guys, I think not having them against this Minnesota front line, like you saw when Minnesota's throwing out Gobert, Randall, and Naz Reid together, Denver has no chance to hang with that front line. Like, it's like Jokic, Spencer Jones, and then Cam Johnson or Christian Brown. It's like they do not have a prayer of hanging physically with that group. They needed Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson, I think, is probably one of the handful of guys you'd feel comfortable guarding Jaden McDaniels in a one-on-one situation. With the way Jaden was playing, he probably wins that matchup still, but like Peyton Watson is cut from a similar mold. So I don't know with Adelman. I'm not sure, but I mean, if they decide to move on, like, I think that just shows how dire things are in Denver. Like, I do think there'll be some big changes there, and they'll definitely have to make some trades and some big moves this summer. Fahim, thank you for the super chat. I hope Laker fans appreciate what they just saw from Braun and look back fondly on what he's brought to the city/franchise. Unprecedented chef's kiss. Yeah, I would say, look, I'm never going to tell anybody how to be a fan or what to root for, who to root for, but I know there is a segment of the fan base that has just never embraced or accepted LeBron. And I don't know if it's because of the rivalry with Kobe back in the day, or if it's because they for the first 15 years of his career were rooting against him in Cleveland and Miami, and then back in Cleveland, or like that they're, I don't know, the Russ trade or whatever people want to throw at LeBron in terms of trying to blame him for stuff. Whatever that baggage is, whatever the reasoning is, like I would hope that a moment like this where I know Houston, like what was just a funny team to watch in a 7-game series, a lot of self-inflicted wounds on that side, but to see what LeBron did, like I don't think this was some like run-of-the-mill performance where any star in this scenario of a certain level is like winning the series. Like I truly, I'm not going to go through the names, but I think there are several prominent stars that if you put them in LeBron's shoes in this series, do not win this series. And those guys are younger. Those guys are in their primes. So I know it hasn't always been the cleanest relationship between the LeBron side and Laker fans. And now for a lot, like I know a lot of fans have embraced him and a lot of fans love him. And, but I know, like I just see it from the super chats. I see it from the comments. I saw it during the season when people wanted him to leave or some people wanted him to leave. And like, I get it. Like there's been a bit of a divide there at times, but the performance he just had and putting this team on his back at times and really embracing, like going from embracing a demotion to being a number 3 when he had never really been a number 2 during his career. Like, I mean, that was never really a thing. Like even when they tried to make AD the number 1, it still inevitably ended up LeBron being the number 1. So he goes from being the number 1 to overnight, Luka comes in, it's Luka's franchise. He embraces the transfer of power. It's a very peaceful transfer of power. But then it's LeBron's the number 2. Then all of a sudden Austin pops to start the season and it shifts toward, well, Austin's the number 2. And even if he's not like definitively better than LeBron, like he's going to be the number 2 in the future, or at least with like the current build. So now it's on LeBron to accept being a number 3. He accepts that. Then shockingly, Luka and Austin both get injured and LeBron now has to go back to being the number 1. And he does it with grace. He carries the load. He helps propel the Lakers into round 2. And we'll see what he's able to do against this OKC team. But I think a special moment that for anyone who hasn't felt like LeBron is truly a Laker or doesn't feel like I did Run It Back, the FanDuel show a couple weeks ago. And they asked me a question about LeBron getting his jersey retired. And I said like, yeah, he's obviously getting his jersey retired. Like that's not a debate or a conversation. And a bunch of the comments were going at me saying it's not a foregone conclusion. Like LeBron's getting his jersey retired. LeBron deserves to get his jersey retired. And LeBron is a Laker. He has now spent the second most amount of time in anywhere in his career in LA. Also, the longest stretch of his career in one place is now in LA, and longer than even his longest tenure in Cleveland. He's a Laker. It might not be the most conventional path to getting there. It did happen much later in his career and as he was established already as a Cav and a Heat player, but he's been here. He has embraced LA. He's embraced the Lakers. And again, I'm not going to tell anybody how to be a fan, how to feel about LeBron. You're entitled to your opinion, however you feel. But I just thought if you were a little bit skeptical or a little bit not fully embracing him, I feel like this should be the time or the moment to just accept like LeBron is a Laker. And I just think what he did, to your point, unprecedented and special and just an awesome moment for a 41-year-old. To the We, thank you for the super chat. Imagine being one of the people that thought LA was better off without LeBron. OKC next. We still got a chance. As always, appreciate the content. Excuse me. Thank you, first and foremost. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to relitigate that conversation because we relitigated it so many times, but there was obviously a stretch where people thought the Lakers were better off without LeBron, and I think that's played out. Fahim, thank you for the super chat. Obviously, things can change on a dime, but Wendy was just on SVP and said sources projected Luka back at the earliest in about 10 days. Sounds like odds are Lakers play likely most of round 2 without Luka. Thank you for the update here. So 10 days would mean that it's May 1st. That would be May 11th. So May 11th is game 4. That if we're saying he's out the next 10 days, that means the earliest would be a return in game 5. So yeah, I mean, at that point, you would just hope LA has it 2-2 if he's able to return. Then if it's 3-1 or obviously 4-0, then the series is over. If it's 3-1, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think the goal should be at least 2-2. Peter, thank you for the super chat. I didn't have the East playoffs being more interesting than the West on my Big O card. Who are your picks for the Game 7s and Game 1 Minnesota San Antonio? I'm gonna stick with my priors. So for tomorrow, I'm picking Boston, but that one I feel like we've seen the movie before where Philly just over, and this is not scientific at all. This is just more of like a gut feeling thing, but I feel like Philly has had hope against Boston at several points over the past 6 or 7 years, and Boston just always rips their heart out. I mean, they just had a Game 7 a couple of years ago. Now I know James Harden was in that Game 7, so I'll say this actually. So I'm picking Boston, and I'm picking Detroit because I think that was a devastating loss today for Orlando. I caught. Maybe I was the bad luck charm for the Magic because I caught only the second half, and I just was like, I know this game's probably over, but let me just turn it on and watch it. And what I watched was they went scoreless for, or at least without a field goal. I don't remember if it was scoreless or without a field goal, but they didn't score a field goal at least for over 30 real minutes, not game minutes, but just in real time. They missed 23 straight shots, which is a playoff record. Just shots, it's not one of the Houston against Golden State missing 27 straight threes, which they were scoring in between. This was just straight up 23 straight shots. They could not score. That was one of the worst collapses and meltdowns I've ever seen from a team. It was basically like the Houston Rockets 12-second collapse against the Lakers over the entire second half for Orlando. So, that was a devastating loss. I mean, maybe you could talk yourselves into Orlando finding a way to rally and be like, hey, we should have won. Let's go out and win Game 7. But I just think Boston and Detroit are better than Philly and Orlando respectively. So I'm going there. What I'm not as convinced on, I think Toronto could beat Cleveland. I'm still going to lean Cleveland because to bring this back to some of my prior playoff analysis, I did think there was a clear top 4 in the East, and I do think it's probably going to go chalk and those 4 teams advance, even though all 4 of them took their lumps in the first round and we really saw their warts. And if anything, I just feel better about whoever comes out of the West. I think is going to beat whoever comes out of the East even more convincingly than I thought previously. So I will go Cleveland, but I think if I had to pick an upset, I would pick Toronto over Cleveland. I know technically it's a 4-5 matchup, but on paper, I mean, Cleveland was the projected 1 seed going into the season. They won over 60 games last year. They did the Harden trade. Cleveland should have won this in 5 or 6. RJ Barrett, it's a big shot tonight, reminiscent of the Kawhi shot. But I think if there is an upset, I would pick Toronto to be the team that upsets and beats Cleveland, and we get Game 7 James Harden. In terms of Game 1, Minnesota, San Antonio, I think Minnesota has a better chance than people think, even without Ant, though it does seem like Ant will return at some point in the first round series. But because I could also see if they're going with the triple big lineup, I think one of the weak spots within San Antonio's rotation is I don't love the 4 spot. I think that's the clear upgrade spot for them in terms of Champagne or Harrison Barnes, or sometimes they'll go small and it might even be like Castle. Keldon Johnson as well, but it's solid. It's like solid to good, but if there is a spot where they can be a little susceptible to, like, I'm just imagining if they go Gobert, Randall, Reed, and really try to physically overwhelm San Antonio's front line, aside from like Wemby's going to be Wemby, but if it's the other two spots and it's like Champagne and Johnson trying to battle Randall and Reed on the offensive glass or in the post, that's going to be tough. So, and then that's to say nothing of like, I mean, those lineups, Jaden McDaniels was the 2. So you're going with like 4, 6'9" and above dudes who all are physical and nasty and tough. And that's just a really tough physical matchup. So I think Minnesota has a chance to steal game 1. And we saw, despite San Antonio winning that series, and they looked far more comfortable down the stretch of the series, but there were some moments there where Portland looked like they won a game and they're putting a scare in them. Minnesota, I think, is a much better team than Portland, even without Ant. Should be getting Io back. So I'm going to pick San Antonio to win the series, and I'll pick them to win game 1, but Minnesota, I think, has a real shot. Dan Howard, thank you for the super chat. AR and Smart, great tonight on D. AR underrated on D. So I ended up not hitting on the notable performers section, which I apologize for, although I kind of talked through it earlier. Smart, yes, great on D. Again, 4 stocks, 3 charges, forced a jump ball. Marcus was everywhere and just awesome. AR, so he had, just double checking here, he had 3 blocks tonight, and I thought his some of the low man rotations and also even a couple of those I think were on direct drives against Amen Thompson, who was trying to target Austin and take him off the dribble. He lost some of the physical battles tonight, but I thought he competed on that end. It is like, I don't think he's quite at the same level defensively as he was before the injury, and that's going to be something to monitor with him. But I thought there was some progress. Like, I actually thought compared to game 5, his help defense and some of the rotations were better. I don't think the on-ball defense was as good as game 5, but I think like Austin's mistakes or limitations on defense will always be loud because he's 6'5" and 210 pounds, but dude scraps and competes and is always getting in there, trying to take charges, trying to put his face on the line. And, I would like to see him. Sometimes there's certain situations where I just want to see him foul. Same thing with Luke. Like if you're just physically overmatched, I'd rather you just foul the dude. Like, don't let him get an and 1, but don't let him just power through you or just get an uncontested layup. That's really the only thing with him. But I would say underrated is appropriate way to put it. Like, some things he could certainly be better at, and he was targeted undeniably by Houston tonight. But I thought he held up fine, all things considered. Arno DeCapo, thank you for the super chat. Let's be realistic. If we win 1 game, we should be happy. Yeah, I mean, look, like if the Lakers had Luka, they would still be heavy underdogs in this series. I'd really be curious to know, like, an alternate universe, if Luka is available for game 1, what the line would be. Because I think if it was 15.5 without Luka, I think it's still probably like 8.5, 9.5 with Luka. I think it would have still been a very high line and disrespectful against the Lakers. But yeah, I mean, the Lakers like did not play well against OKC this year. And I think OKC really checks the boxes of all of the things that give the Lakers problems. Like the Lakers, I mean, part of the reason why the Lakers run some of the schemes they run is because against, like, especially the way they sold out against KD, for example. I mean, part of it's to test his passing and to try to turn the ball over, junk the game up a little bit. But basically, it's an admission from JJ that we don't have confidence that we could guard this guy one-on-one, right? And like, there's a difference with like Şengün, right? Like they said, okay, Ayton, you can guard Şengün one-on-one. But if there is a real limitation with LA's perimeter defense or just defense in general, it's like you don't trust their one-on-one defenders against like the best individual scorers in the league. And they're going up against the guy who is second in the league in scoring and had one of the best isolation scoring seasons of all time this season. So they're going to be in a bit of a bind with like the Shea problem and just how they navigate that. Also foul trouble. Like he's going to draw some fouls on guys, and it's going to be a factor that the Lakers are going to have to figure out as well. But I mean, I think there should be optimism and happiness just for even making the second round based on who is out. And then against OKC, I think the goal should be at least to have a competitive series. Of course, you want to win the series, but like, I don't think it's, I don't want to like overreact and think it's some reflection of, this like giant disappointment if the Lakers lose to the Thunder. Like they're expected to lose to the Thunder, and I think this is going to be a big series to see who fits, who doesn't, who should stay, who shouldn't, and how the Lakers attack the offseason ultimately. Zach Wan, thank you for the super chat. Around the same wage, would you choose Oubre versus D-Wade versus Rui versus Tobias, 11 to 12 million, Grimes versus Keon, 15 to 6, Kessler versus Duran, 35-ish. Would you offer 30 million for Watson? Okay, we got a lot to break down here. Quickly, this first one is really interesting because I really like Dean Wade. I even like him at that number. I think that would surprise some people. I think a lot of people would consider him like a lower player than that number. I don't think he's a starter for a championship team. And I think based on the Lakers' limited resources, that would be a misallocation of their resources. So I would probably go, I want to look up, I don't know how Oubre's been numbers wise off the top of my head. I just want to see for this series. Yeah, so he's not shooting the ball well. He's had some nice offensive games, some nice like Oubre. So for me, this is between Oubre and Rui. I would probably rank it Dean Wade 4, Tobias 3, and then it's close between Oubre and Rui. Oubre's a better defender. He's a higher motor player. He's a better rebounder. He's more athletic, but Rui's a much better shooter. I think he's a more stable offensive player. And he also has the institutional knowledge of playing under JJ, playing with Luka, etc. So that's really close for me. I think you can make an argument either way. I might even lean Rui slightly, but I do think the Lakers need an influx of defense and athleticism, and Oubre, especially in comparison to like a Jake or a Vando, I think is a much better two-way player and just like playoff appropriate player. So I might rank this Rui, Oubre, Tobias, Wade, but that's more a reflection of like the Lakers' needs rather than Oubre versus Rui is close. It's tough to see Rui drop 21 and have the shooting performance he did and pick Oubre, but if you really want to like focus on the defense athleticism, there's a case to be made for Oubre. Grimes versus Keon, I would go Grimes. I think similar thing where you could argue Keon fits a little bit more with the defensive side. I think he's a better defender than Grimes, but Grimes is closer to being a two-way guy in terms of like, I think he's clearly an offensive guy, but I think his defense is better than Keon's offense. Like Keon has the spot up shooting, the catch and shoot ability, but I think Grimes is just a better player. I also think this is a little high for Keon and a little low for Grimes. I think Grimes is going to go for more than this, but we'll see. Kessler versus Duran. I mean, after this series, we'll see if Duran can redeem himself in the next round, but I would go Kessler at this point. And that's not what I would have said a week and a half ago, but Jalen Duren has had a really rough first round, and it has. I mean, he's gone from being like a second team All NBA guy for some people to there are times they've looked better with him off the floor, and that's just and like I like Wendell Carter, but the fact that Wendell Carter has been pushing him around at times and like matching him physically, it's a little concerning. Where I mean Kessler, there's like the new car element of you haven't seen him in the playoffs, you don't know how he'll hold up, but I do think Kessler is a better rebounder and rim protector than Duren. Now, Duren, I think, is overall like a more versatile offensive player, even if he hasn't really shown it this series. But yeah, I mean, I would take either of them to be clear, but honestly, I'd probably lean Kessler right now. And then Watson, $30 million. I'm a little concerned with the injury stuff with him and this hamstring injury that kept him out for a while. And like the fact that he wasn't able to return in that first round series. I think that's like the absolute most I'd want to pay. I would prefer to pay him somewhere in that like mid to high 20s range, but I also acknowledge that with a restricted free agent, you typically have to overpay to poach them. So yeah, I would, but it depends on, for me, like what the center alternative is or what the center plan is at that point. You could argue he's a guy that if you go Watson, maybe you just keep DA for a year and then revisit your center position in 2027. But I don't love Watson at 30 million anymore. It's like a little high, but again, the Lakers have limited means to, in terms of like, there's just not that many great free agent options. So it's sort of like, do you want to make the upgrade or do you want to like win the deal or win the ESPN trade grade, right? Or free agent grade. It's like, sure, would you win it if you got Watson for 22 million? Yeah, but you're not getting Watson for 22 million. So I mean, I think if they're gonna poach Kessler, Duren, or Watson, they're gonna have to overpay a little bit. That's just the reality of the situation. BT Kingsley, thank you for the super chat. Quentin Grimes versus Peyton Watson. Who do you like more? Definitely Peyton Watson. I think Grimes, I know he's been a long time favorite of the chat. I think I would say if you're adding Grimes, or let me take a step back here. Assuming that the Lakers are planning to keep Austin and the plan continues to be like longer term, it's Luka plus Austin and we're figuring out the pieces around them. I think Peyton Watson, I just think he's straight up a better player than Grimes, but I also think he fits more with that vision of the team. Now, if the Lakers have second thoughts about Austin and maybe he has a rough OKC series and they decide to go in a different direction or at least entertain it, then I think Grimes can make more sense because you are going to need to replace the shot creation and scoring with Austin. And he's a defensive upgrade over Austin, in my opinion. So I think it's more so need-based, in my opinion, where Peyton Watson, you could also argue could fit the non-Austin version of the team because he is a versatile forward who can play the 3 or the 4. He can defend multiple positions. He's long, he's athletic, he's quick. He can get out in transition. He's improved as a shot creator and as a shooter, solid rebounder. Like he checks a lot of the boxes you want from a modern forward, where Quentin Grimes, like, yes, they're the scoring, the shooting, there are things I really like about his game. I just think like that it's a little bit more replaceable, or that general player archetype is a little bit more out there, especially when factoring in he's 6'5" or so compared to Watson, who's 6'8", 6'9". Like finding that player is a little bit trickier. And that's been a spot that the Lakers have really missed. Like they have not had a two-way elite athlete in the front court in quite a while. Like, putting LeBron and AD aside, like, those are stars, but from like a role player perspective, or even like a high level starter, like non-star, but like high level starter, they haven't had the Jaden McDaniels type on their team or, just guys like that. And I think Peyton Watson checks that box. So I would prefer that. Shibugan, thank you for the super chat. Lakers win after being underdogs in every game. Denver loses after being favorites. Celtics might lose tomorrow. Everything from here is a bonus. I mean, for the Lakers and Laker fans, smoking on that Celtics pack would be something, right? So I know Laker fans are going to be rooting for Philly tomorrow. I get that. I just, was asked for my prediction on it. But yeah, I mean, they could certainly lose. Like the Tatum injury, and we'll see, his state. I don't think he's been ruled out, but even I assume he's going to play, but just kind of where he's at physically. And Brown obviously had not the best game in Game 6. So yeah, it's certainly possible that Boston loses. Keon Park 90, thank you for the super chat. Give Rui applause for first round. He was steady, averaging 16 points, 55%, shooting 58%. I did. I have given Rui his flowers multiple times during the show, but I will continue to do it. Rui was awesome. And I thought the defense, I would say for me in 4 of the 6 games was some of the best defense he's played all season, if not the best. So, Rui was, he at this point has shown to be a playoff riser. And I think that's important moving forward. The man JM, thank you for the super chat. Adu should be playing more. Check emails. Okay, I will check my emails. And I know there's a big fantasy out there for Adu to play more. It's just not going to happen. I hate to break a bunch of people's hearts, but it's just not happening. I think it would take like multiple injuries to multiple players in the rotation to happen, but I have liked the moments we've seen from him, and I think it would be great next year if he's like a back end rotation guy. I think that would be awesome. Katja, thank you for the super chat. Is Luke's new role now relegated to the corner for the rest of the playoffs? I hope not. I would hope not, but he is clearly number 4 in the pecking order in terms of ball handling and shot creation and playmaking. So I think he is now relegated more to an off-ball role. I think the majority of the usage will funnel through Austin and LeBron, and then to a lesser degree, Marcus. And Luke, we didn't talk about it. One of the adjustments they made earlier, which I think was predictable, so that's why I didn't touch on it. But Luke moved to the bench. Austin started in his place. We saw that second half of Game 5. So Luke tonight, still played 29 minutes. Obviously, the Lakers pulled some guys early, so maybe he could have played 30, 31 if they didn't have garbage time. But that seems to be more in line with what they're going to play him. And he's now the 6th man. So I don't think he's going to be relegated to the corner. I think they'll run flare actions with him and pin downs and different things. But I think he's got to play better. He's got to shoot better, and he's got to shoot more. And those, I don't think it's all on Austin's return or all on the Lakers like phasing him out of their offense. Those things are true to some degree, but Luke has not just, I think objectively, like not played that well over these last few games. And it's like, if he's not making shots, I think the bigger thing is like, if he's not making shots or even taking shots, he has to find other ways to contribute. And during part of this stretch, he was targeted heavily and struggled defensively. And then on top of it, he's not really giving you much in like the rebounding perspective. He's not been giving you much in the playmaking perspective. He still has utility as a gravity guy, as a threat, as someone you have to close out too hard and draws a lot of attention. But you don't want to be like, this dude played 30 minutes tonight and he went 1 for 4. And his biggest contribution was like, they paid attention to him. Like, yes, that has value, but that's not a 30-minute per night guy in the playoffs. So he's got to play better and make more shots. I think that's just the biggest thing. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. I think 15.5 kind of makes sense because no Luka, injury, AR, fatigue, Braun, and Marcus, just skill-wise, maybe 8 to 10. Yeah, look, I understand the Thunder are favored. I would assume like every analytical projection, I would not be surprised if the most like common analytical projection for this series is OKC sweeping the Lakers. And most people who make their predictions are going to go OKC in 4 or OKC in 5. I don't think anybody I would be shocked if any like national person picks the Lakers. Maybe Nick Wright. I don't know, but that might be it. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but yeah, 15.5 is pretty high. Jazz_Sing, thank you for the super chat. Can DA be our Gafford high level backup for 10 million? That I think is the best role for DA, in my opinion. Like, and I think at this point, I mean, look, he was a starting level center for the series, so I do want to give credit where credit is due. I think at the same time, like the offensive, I think the defense and the rebounding were basically there the full series. If we want to be objective and analytical here, like the offense was not up to par in 3 of the 6 games, and 3 single-digit scoring games where he's getting stripped or blocked or just missing layups, missing dunks, whatever. And I think they need a little bit more stability overall from the position, because even with the first round series, like in general, just the season was very up and down. And I would say more ups than downs, but the downs were pretty bad. And I would like a higher floor starting center where like the worst game the guy has is like, 12, 14 points, 9, 10 rebounds, and like an okay defensive night, not 6 points, 4 rebounds, and like a terrible defensive night and like can't catch the ball, is getting blocked, getting stripped. I think the Lakers need a higher floor center as the starter. Now, if he's a backup, I think if he's willing to embrace a backup role, I think he's one of the best backups in the league, if not maybe even the very best backup in the league. I mean, there's a few guys on that short list that come to mind: Naz Reid and Isaiah Stewart. Those are the first couple guys that Luke Cornett is in that conversation. But I mean, DA can have a higher ceiling than maybe any of those guys, right? I think Naz Reid is up there, but yeah, I mean, he's. I think he's in a weird spot because I think he's like too good to be a backup, but he's also not good enough to be like a championship starting center, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably his destiny would be like a high level backup in that 10 to 15 million range, but we'll see what he does with his contract. Inc. Thank you for the super chat. Were Austin and Luka hurt at the last OKC game Lakers played them? In the last game at OKC, yes. Not the last time they played OKC, because they played them 2 games later. They went at OKC, at Dallas, and then they came back and played OKC at home. So not the last game that they played them, but the last game in OKC, and the second to last game they played OKC. But that was late in the season, April 2nd. It's a day that Laker fans will never forget. Rough day. Jamie, thank you for the super chat. The only way Braun isn't back in LA is if LA tells him they don't want him. He loves being a Laker. He wants that parade here. He's coming back. I'm largely here. I mean, I think LeBron's coming back. I've been thinking that for the past couple months, maybe even like 2.5 months. But there's a lot of time in between now and not even that much. It's crazy. We're less than 2 months away from free agency. That just shows you how quickly time flies. But yeah, I expect him to be back. I think it's a matter of just what that number is and how low he's willing to go, how high the Lakers are willing to go, right? Like that's the seesaw with it is the Lakers are going to want that number as low as possible. LeBron's going to want that number as high as realistically possible. And we'll see where they meet in the middle, but I think they will. Suede Puma asks, any chance Lakers trade for Suggs? Orlando might look to get rid of him, would be slightly overpriced, but I think he's better than Herb Jones. He is someone that I have mentioned over the past couple of months as when people, I often get the question, who are some of the guys that maybe we're not talking about that you think could be available, or who are some of the guys that if a team flames out could potentially be available? And in my opinion, Jalen Suggs is one of those guys that if you just look at Orlando's situation and really more so the fact that they brought in Bane, I think kind of didn't like push Suggs out, but makes him a little bit more expendable. And just having so many defensive minded players, like at some point you need to find that balance with the offense. And I mean, as we saw, Orlando just had one of the worst stretch of offense in playoff history, at least since 97, 98, when they started the tracking era. 23 shots in a row. Suggs to me is on the short list for like best fits next to Luka and Austin in the league as like that third perimeter guy. There's a lot of similarities between him and Marcus Smart. He's like a younger Marcus Smart, even to the point of like sometimes the questionable shooting could have his shot come and go. Marcus is a better shooter, but could have stretches of good shooting, stretches of bad shooting, a bit injury prone, plays balls to the wall, like hard as hell. I'd be open to Jalen Suggs. I think to your point, it is a little tricky with the salary, but if Orlando wants to get off of him, if the Lakers like threw in a pick and it's just, hey, we'll take on Jalen Suggs and we'll send you a first and we trade him into our cap space, like I think that would be a smart move. Brian asks, game one is on Tuesday. I will quickly, for those who are tuning in and missed it earlier, I will share the screen here with the schedule quickly. So game one is on Tuesday, game two Thursday, game three Saturday, game four Monday, game five Wednesday. I point that out just to show every other day, games 1 through 5. They get a 2-day break in between games 5 and 6, and then a 1-day break in between games 6 and 7. So it is going to pick up, like, remember, between games 1 and 2, 2-day break. This series, games 1 and 2, 2-day break. Games 2 and 3, 2-day break. Games 2 and 3, 2-day break. Games 3 and 4, 1-day break. Games 4 and 5, 2-day break. So like totally different. In between games 1 and 5 in this series, LA had 3 stretches where they had 2-day breaks. This series goes every other day for the first 5 games. So it is going to be a mentally and physically taxing for LA in a way that it was not in this series. Outer Space Mitch, I like the way you start this. Weird off the wall question, Jovan. If you had to guess and put a number on it, how many high fives per game do you think the average player gets? I think there was a study on this at some point, like a decade ago or something, and it showed that teams that high five and make physical contact with each other, which you could, people love the bromance with Luka and Austin. I've seen all the tweets. I'm aware of it. Actually, it's like a sign of camaraderie and connectedness, and it actually correlates to like the best teams in the league touch each other more with high fives. The worst teams in the league don't touch each other enough. So I think there's a real thing here in terms of how many high fives per game. I mean, it's obviously like you got to think about timeouts. So that off the top of my head, we'll just automatically go with like 12. And then like a big play, like a charge or a stop or something. So I'll say guy, like the average set of close teammates, probably high fives 30 times per game, something like that. I know the chat's having fun with this one right now. Hey, it's past midnight here and in LA. So I can just, I could say, I could go off the rails here a little bit. Matt Voyer says, Arash Markazi just posted, the Thunder beat the Lakers by an average of 29.3 points per game this season. It's the worst of any playoff matchup in NBA history. Either OKC, San Antonio will win the title. Yeah, I mean, again, I made this point earlier. If you judge the season, if you're basing your confidence in LA against OKC on the season series, I mean, this is a route, right? Like I even went because I was curious, like, I looked this up. I was like, let's see how the other top teams in the West fared against OKC, right? And just to kind of put in perspective, like LA versus OKC. And it was like, okay, well, Denver got swept, but every one of the losses was single digits. San Antonio beat them 4-1, including they played them in the play-in. And then I don't remember the exact season series of Houston, Minnesota, but they each won at least one game. I think Houston won twice, if I'm not. One of the two won twice, one won once. But like, I think the biggest loss was like 15 points or something collectively across those two teams. So point being was like, the other top teams in the West fared much better against the Thunder, where the Lakers completely unraveled against the Thunder. And like, again, if you close your eyes and think about the worst stretches of Lakers basketball this season, it was athletic teams ball pressuring them. It was OKC, it was San Antonio, it was Phoenix, it was Houston, and turning them over, containing them in the pick and roll, containing them with switches, and LA just not really having an answer for that. So there are reasons to be concerned. I'm not going to overlook or deny that, but I also think LA is in a much different place right now. That they have had time to kind of figure out the new version of the offense. I think the biggest difference is actually the entry point into the Thunder defense, in my opinion, is going to be LeBron in the post. I think a lot of the ways the Lakers attacked Houston are going to be the same ways they attack OKC. And like that, I think, is a little bit different with how they attacked OKC, because they tried to, I think the pick and roll stuff, you got to be careful, because OKC, like, thinking about Austin, bringing the ball up the floor, they're going to blitz Austin. They're going to pressure him. Like, it was funny. I was talking about this with someone the other day. I was preparing for the OKC matchup. I was watching the Phoenix game, and I was like seeing Phoenix have a little bit of success. And I was like, well, I mean, Lakers have better ball handlers than Phoenix. Like they can, and like immediately after I said that, it was like 3 straight possessions of just on ball picking Phoenix. And like Dylan Brooks is trying to dribble. Kason Wallace just rips him. And then like Caruso rips someone. And it was just like, all right, yeah, like this is, OKC goes on defensive runs where they just annihilate you, and Lakers got to be prepared for that. But I mean, yeah, it's a lopsided matchup on paper. If you judge the season series, you would expect the Lakers to lose by 30 points a game, but I don't think that's how this is going to play out. Karl Marx, thank you for the super chat. LBJ with a Tanahashi masterclass game. Yeah, I mean, he was great, and I love the constant Karl Marx references here. Tomman, thank you for the super chat. What's the asking price for Kamara? Him and Watson can be the wings of the future. Stan Van, a real Lakers hater. He hasn't gotten over the 2009 finals. Yeah, it was what was a lot of Houston love on the broadcast, we will say. I haven't asked recently. I would say last year, before Kamara even popped even more, I had asked a little bit, and it sounded like they wanted 2+ firsts for him. So it's kind of along the lines of, I mean, I don't blame them. Like, Kamara is one of the 10 best perimeter defenders in the league. He's, and if you actually like isolate it more for like wing defenders, he's probably a top 5 wing defender. So I mean, if I'm Portland, like, Portland has a bright future. I still think they're probably missing a true number 1, but Kamara is like locked in. Like, I mean, he's not the same player as Jaden McDaniels, but I feel like he should be viewed in the light of like how Minnesota like refused to give up Jaden McDaniels in basically any trade conversation or anything. I think Kamara is kind of hitting that point as well. So yeah, I think it's a long shot that the Lakers can pull that off. Bruce, now would be perfect for the Lakers. Sai, yeah, and I mean, if you look at, yeah. Mr. Starlin says Austin Reeves can't handle against ball pressure and physicality. I thought he did an okay job or even a solid job in these two games. I don't think that was the area where I had issues with Austin. It was more so the jump shot, the finishing in game 5, and then some of the defensive stuff. But I mean, in the regular season, that was obviously a big issue. And I mentioned it. He played OKC 3 times. He had 14 turnovers in the 3 games. And a couple of those games, he barely played past the third, kind of midway through the third quarter because the game was over. So yeah, he's got to be like, this is the test of that, right? Like, I think just to spoil already, like my Lakers preview, it's the Lakers' biggest weakness at times this season has been taking care of the ball and handling ball pressure. I think Houston didn't really ball pressure them enough. I think when Houston did ball pressure them, we saw some turnovers and some concern with LA's offense, and OKC is going to ball pressure them. And OKC, the other thing is OKC's been scouting this. Like the one advantage, I mean, of course the Lakers have been scouting too and prepping for OKC during the series as well, because they have people assigned to like certain teams, and you have scouts assigned to other teams in the playoffs in preparation for it. But like OKC's had real prep and practice time already for the Lakers. And that is something that has to be at the top of the scouting report for them, of like, this is what we're going to do against them. And yeah, Austin's going to be thrown into the ringer, and it's going to be a nice test to see how he hangs. Here, I hope I said that right. Thank you for the super chat. I know people won't agree, but I think this young athletic team is a good tune-up for OKC. Houston had length and youth, and we still got it done. Yes, I would agree. I think so for those who listened to me on here a few days ago and then listened to me on Lakers Collective, the analogy I made was comparing Houston to a White Claw and OKC to a Four Loko. And my point was like, they both are technically alcoholic, bubbly beverages that, will in one case get you a buzz, one case black you out. But like that's where the similarities end. And point being, like, I do think that I think Houston was a nice tune-up, that there are some other, like if they played Denver, for example, Denver would have been a completely different matchup in terms of that would have been more, how do you stop Jokic? How do you stop the Jokic-Murray 2-man game? And you're not getting tested the same way defensively as you did against Houston. However, I just think OKC, the basketball IQ between the two teams is like not, like OKC is, every player is locked into their role. They can scale up or down, and they're almost, I think, like greater than the sum of their parts. Like I think that's the thing that people struggle with when they analyze OKC is, I think people look at them and they still don't really believe in some of the guys, or they're like, they're good, but they're not that good. But they're like this hive mind that I really think just operates at this crazy level together, and everybody's just so in sync. And it doesn't mean they don't go through cold spells, don't turn the ball over, don't have their stretches, but for the most part, they really play a high level of basketball that's very mistake free for the most part. So I think that's the biggest difference, is like Houston is having these possessions, they throw the ball out of bounds in the backcourt with no pressure. OKC does not make mistakes like that. So OKC, again, will have the shooting spells. There might be times where guys try to do a little bit too much offensively, or the Lakers can speed them up a little bit. But for the most part, they are like, they take after Shea, and they're very much just like kind of cold and calculated and chill. And I think the Houston comparison, like there are some real things to your point with length and youth and athleticism, but I think OKC does just that at a much higher level. And then offensively, I don't think they're comparable. I think OKC is a much better offensive team. And we saw with Houston, like, because I think that was a point I made earlier in the show. I think the Lakers, if you look at the series, the Lakers high was 112. If you look at this here quickly, LA scored over 100 points in 3 games, the first 3 games of the series. The last 3 games, they were under 100 in all 3. I don't think that's going to be enough close to enough to hang with OKC. OKC, their 4 games against Phoenix, 119, 120, 121, 131. Now, a point of optimism for LA, Phoenix scored 84. They got blown out in game 1, 107, 109, 122. So from a pace perspective and Phoenix being able to score at a certain level, I think that should give some optimism with LA and their offense. But they're gonna they can't have these 40% shooting performances against this team. They need to shoot much better, and I'm gonna be curious to see what changes JJ makes offensively. Paul, Jovan, who you like in tomorrow's game? I like Boston. The little kid Lakers fan of me is, that guy wants Philly to win, but I think Boston, I don't know. I've just seen this movie too many times in the playoffs where Boston just rips Philly's heart out. Tally Khalifa, are there any holes in the OKC defense we could take advantage of? Pause. Yeah, I think so. I think that the entry point is going to be LeBron and LeBron bully ball. I think the interesting thing with the OKC matchup, especially if J-Dub is out, is I really wonder how they start with the matchups. And so if you look at their, let me pull it up here. Because, are you going Chet? If I'm them, I don't want Chet on LeBron because that's going to be physically taxing. That might get Chet in foul trouble. But if you look at their matchup, so they've been starting AJ Mitchell in place of J-Dub. He's not big enough to defend LeBron. So you might have to go Lou Dort. And so I think but he's not really big enough to guard LeBron. And now you're risking him just taking LeBron's leg out, which maybe that's not a bad plan from OKC side, but you're probably going, I'm thinking from the OKC side, if you go same starting group, Hartenstein, Chet, Shea, Dort, AJ Mitchell, they probably put Hartenstein on, this is interesting because I think they go Hartenstein on DA. I think they go AJ Mitchell on Austin. AJ Mitchell actually defended Austin well in the regular season. I think they probably go Dort on LeBron, and then you have a couple of decisions to make here. I think they might go Shea on Rui and maybe Chet on Marcus and just dare Marcus to shoot. That might be the way I start it if I'm OKC. The more traditional way would be Hartenstein on DA, Chet on LeBron, AJ Mitchell on Austin, or actually Lou Dort on Austin, AJ Mitchell on Marcus, and Shea on Rui. But I would almost mix it up and just go Chet on Marcus and be like, we're gonna help off Marcus, we're gonna make him shoot, and we're gonna have Chet roam because they prefer Chet roaming and Hartenstein being more of the post guy. You could. An interesting one that we haven't seen as much this year, but we did see a little bit last year. Sometimes teams will put their centers on LeBron. So you could maybe do you go Chet on DA, Hartenstein on LeBron, Shea on Rui, Dort on Austin, AJ Mitchell on Marcus, something like that. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how they attack the starting group because they don't have a great matchup for LeBron. I don't think they necessarily have a great matchup for Rui either in terms of tracking him if the Lakers are moving him around pin downs and stuff. But I think that the big holes in their defense are going to be offensive rebounding and attacking in the post and trying to get mismatches and attacking mismatches. The things I think they got to be careful of is too much dancing and ISO, pick and rolls that they will blitz and trap. And I think the toughest thing with OKC's defense is they are the best rotating team in the league. So I think one of the things that the Lakers really struggle with against them is the Lakers would think they had an advantage. And in that second, OKC's rotated and they just rotate just unlike I think any defense in the league. So that's going to be one of the things. But I think the entry points in the post and really LeBron. It's a big LeBron series. Like they're going to need LeBron to dominate them. Soy Puma asks, how long is J-Dub out? They said he's week to week. We don't have a firm timetable on it. I think game 1 is about 2 weeks after he went out. So I think there's a chance he returns early to mid-series, but we'll see. Civic Citizen says that let's start DA and Maxey for a double big lineup. My question would be then, who do you take out? Because I don't think you could take out this is a big Marcus series. Marcus is going to be the primary guy on Shea. Marcus is getting that assignment. I think they'll mix in. I did not like the Jake on Shea minutes that we saw in the regular season. So I think it's going to be Marcus and Vando. I think those are going to be the two primary matchups against Shea. I think Vando is going to have to play. So you can't take out Marcus. They're not going to take out Austin. So basically, if you're putting in Maxey, you're taking out Rui. And with Rui shooting, I think you need Rui in there. And Rui can also be a guy that, like if I'm the let's flip the matchups now. If I'm the Lakers, how I would approach it, I would go DA on Hartenstein. I think I'd go Rui on Chet. I would go LeBron on Dort and just he's the guy you help off of. You don't want to. He has shot well against the Lakers, so that's where you got to be careful with like helping off of him too aggressively. Marcus on Shea, and then Austin has to guard AJ Mitchell, and like that's gonna be a tough matchup for Austin. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Maxey goes from being out of the rotation to starting, but I would if Jackson struggles, I think you should have a quick hit, quick hook with Jackson and go to Maxey if you need to. I'm Himothy. Asks, do you think Luka will come back from what you know? It's really tough to say. I think we'll have a better sense. What I will say is like I'm growing like less optimistic, but with the caveat that I think it depends on like mid. It's gonna be tough. What I'm curious, like if I'm the Lakers, I almost wonder, do you want Luka to travel to OKC? Because I would rather Luka. You can get work in on the road, right? But I'd almost prefer Luka stay back in LA and just like be at the practice facility multiple hours a day and be like getting treatment and recovery and working out and getting reps. And even if it also means you got to ask some of the 2A guys or like stay ready guys, whatever, to stay back with Luka, like, because that's the next thing with Luka is like, with what we know, he has not done anything beyond just the movement stuff on the court. So like the next thing is going to be 1-on-1 work, then 3-on-3 work, then 5-on-5. And that will have to be like over the course of a couple of days, then you're being cleared to play. So with Austin, once Austin started the 1-on-1 work, Austin had about a week in between. Like it was a few days later, he got questionable game 3, then didn't play, game 4, same thing, and then plays game 5. It was like maybe a little over a week. So I'm expecting a similar thing with Luka. So basically, if it's like Monday or Tuesday and Luka hasn't started doing some of those things, maybe the Lakers are just being extra secretive about it. And like, it's a massive decoy. But if we're asking about it and JJ saying he hasn't done some of these things, at that point, it's like, okay, if he hasn't done it by Tuesday, that makes it unlikely. I mean, that implies he's probably missing the first 4 games and maybe can return at game 5 at the earliest. If he hasn't done it by like the time they're back in LA, then he might just miss the entire series. So I think next week's going to be a big week in terms of any developments with Luka and what he's doing on the practice floor. And if he can do more, great. And that's a step in the right direction. If he can't, then they're running out of time because this is a pretty quick series. If you look at from start to finish, it's 13 days. I mean, that's wild. It's a 13-day series. So it's not even 2 weeks. Whereas you contrast this series started, April 18th, if I'm not mistaken here. Let's see. was it 18th or 19th? No, it was 18th. So yeah, Lakers started this series on April 18th, and we're now, I mean, it finished in 6, but had it gone 7, it would have gone 2 more days. So this series, I mean, yeah, around, I guess it would have been what? Yeah, 15 days. So it's a little, it's only a little bit shorter than the first round, but it's a pretty short series. Like if he's coming back, I think he needs to make some real progress at the beginning of the week. Connor Phillips, do you think Adu and Bronny can be rotation players next season? Back in rotation, of course, but even that would be a huge help. I've grown more optimistic in Bronny. Like, I think if we were being like honest and objective about where he was at and him having a partial guarantee until he started playing in the rotation in late March, and that was obviously an experiment to like see if he could earn it. I think outside of the obvious of just having the connection with LeBron, like there was not a lot justifying him continuing to hold up a roster spot. But with the way that he's played as a rotation guy down the stretch of the season, and then even in a couple of these games, like I think he needs to continue to grow and like is still a bit away from being like a full-time rotation guy. But if he continues to progress the way he progressed from year 1 to year 2, and even throughout the course of year 2, I'm growing optimistic about his ability to like truly justify a roster spot and potentially be a back end rotation guy next year again. I mean, look, he was a back end rotation guy in the playoffs in this first round. So already that shows you the growth in his game and his standing with the coaching staff. Adu, I would say cautiously optimistic. I've liked what we've seen from him in short bursts. I think he's still pretty raw offensively, and he's a guy that needs to just lock himself in the gym, get a bunch of shots up, bunch of threes up. But assuming he can, I think the big thing is going to be like summer league, having a strong summer league, also just being healthy. I think that the biggest issue with Adu this year has just been he's had these stops and starts with the health where he's healthy for a few weeks, then he has a setback or aggravates something with the knee. And it's like, you need, as a young guy, you need time, you need to be healthy. And I do think there's an alternate reality of if he does not have the knee injury, maybe he goes higher in the draft and he's not a Laker, but if he doesn't have the knee stuff, or at least is able to play in summer league, I think that sets him on a different course this season. I think if he had played in summer league, been available to start the season, there's a chance that he breaks out as a rotation guy. But missing that, I think, was huge for him, especially as a rookie. And I would like to see a full summer league and him starting the season off healthy. And I think if he can get into training camp and be healthy, he has the skill set that the Lakers need, at least in like a back end roster or, rotation sense. And yeah, I think they both have a shot. To your point, like I would prefer that they're probably spots like 12 and 13 in the rotation, or 11 and 12, and the Lakers have a really strong top 10 or 11 above them. But I think the thing is, as you can look at OKC's roster, it's like, for example, OKC, I mean, technically, if we're going off of their rotation right now, the full strength rotation with OKC, it's between Jared McCain and Isaiah Joe as their 11th man. Like those are OKC's 11th and 12th men right now, based on the rotation in the playoffs, is Isaiah Joe and Jared McCain. Like, for as nice as some of the Bronny minutes and stints have been, and as nice as some of the Adu putbacks and blocks and rebounds have been, they are not close to being the same level of impact players as either one of those guys right now. So point being is like, I think the goal would be to still have them slotted lower on the roster, but like be able to play, because ideally you build a roster with 15 playable guys, right? The Lakers have struggled to build a roster sometimes with like 9 playable guys. So I think I would ideally not like them in the top 10 on paper, but if their spots 11 and 12 and they're playable, and maybe the Lakers expand the rotation in the regular season, or like guys have injuries, whatever, and they play, that's fine. But I would like to lock in a really strong top 10, and then if those guys are in top 10 spot, they're in the top 10 spot. But I to your point, like I do see back end rotation potential. Julian says, Adu comes in and has an explosive play. Imagine how fun it'd be to watch if he got 10, 12 minutes. I mean, I wish this happened. Like, it was right there in the December, January range where it could have happened. It should have happened. It didn't happen, but I wish it did. Where's the balance? Why do they keep hating on Timmy for dudes with no impact like Nick and Buffkin? I mean, I already stated I thought they should have signed Timmy over either one of those guys, but it is what it is. All right, I'm gonna wrap here in a second, but got a question here from Shamgod. What are some teams you see moving on from key players this summer due to money issues? P-Watt, Suggs or Black, Eason, OKC. So let's go through it. So between those two, I think Orlando would prefer to keep Suggs. I think Anthony Black has a much higher offensive potential. Between Suggs and Black, I think they would prefer to keep Black, but that I think is a legitimate conversation. Eason could be one of the odd men out in Houston. I mean, I think they have some real questions in terms of Şengün and Thompson. Like, I think they both had their moments in this series, but on paper, right? I mean, there was a reason why the Rockets were favored, and even without KD, continued to be favored. And the fact that they invested so much draft capital and like not really putting those guys on the table for Giannis in the conversations with Milwaukee, and like not really wanting to wade into those waters, it's like they've invested a lot in Şengün and Thompson, and like Şengün's an all-star, but I think there's a clear limitation with him in terms of your rim protection and even as like your offensive hub. And Thompson had some nice moments as a playmaker and as a scorer, but it was never as easy as you wanted it to be for him from like, you know, his individual growth perspective. So I think they might make some bigger changes, but Eason could be a guy who's on the outside looking in. OKC, it's going to be between Dort and Hartenstein. The tricky thing is if OKC wins the title, it's hard to be like, we're losing one of our starters. I mean, we've seen teams do it like to a lesser degree, like Denver lost Bruce Brown after 2023, right? And you could go through recent seasons and teams have made big moves or lost guys after winning a title, but making a cost-cutting move is pretty tough to justify to your fan base after winning a title. So we'll see. I think if OKC loses, it's easy to just be like, all right, we got to mix things up, and you make a financial decision. If you're winning, it gets a little tricky there. P-Watt, I think Denver's going to keep him, but I think they will look to trade Cam Johnson or Christian Brown. So the Lakers could get in on one of those guys if they wanted, though don't really love either of their contracts, to say the least. But across the league, Milwaukee, I mean, you could probably get Miles Turner. I don't really want to pursue that if I'm LA. Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, there isn't really much there. Like there's some cheap guys, but I think we're talking more like bigger contracts, like starting level guys. Indiana, this was a gap year for them. They'll be back next year. Miami, maybe. Norm Powell is a free agent this summer, though I don't love his fit with Luka and Austin. But maybe they shake things up a little bit. Charlotte, I think, is on the rise. Orlando's the obvious one. Philly is kind of having this like nice. If Philly loses in 7, I think it was at least a successful first round for them. Like this was not really a group that had expectations based on Embiid's status and whatnot, and PG missing a bunch of times. So Atlanta, I don't see like, yeah, then you get to the rest of the East, and I don't see. Maybe Mitchell Robinson is available coming out of New York, depending on what happens with them. Out West, Denver now, but I mentioned Brown and Johnson. Houston, does Adams maybe is someone that sneakily becomes available. Minnesota, I don't see anything. Portland's on the rise. Phoenix has a Dylan Brooks decision. That's a big decision. Mark Williams also could now be he's going to be a free agent. Clippers are in an interesting spot with several of their guys. Like I'd love to poach Derrick Jones Jr. off them if I'm the Lakers. Golden State is at a bit of a crossroads. Then you get into New Orleans. I think Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion, like some of those guys will be potentially available. Dallas, maybe they finally are willing to move off of Gafford or Washington or Christie or Najee Marshall. And then Memphis, I think, will be open to trading some of their guys. Sacramento, I mean, I don't know if you want anybody from Sacramento. And then Utah, I think is going to try to keep their guys. So yeah, I mean, there's no like obvious, I think you hit on basically all the obvious ones, but I think among these, I think Denver's really going to try to keep P. Watt. All right, I'm going to wrap here though. I appreciate you all for rocking with me. And the Lakers have advanced to the second round for the first time since 2023. They beat the Houston Rockets by 20 points in Game 6, and they will now face the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday. They get 3 days off. I get 0 days off because tomorrow I am waking up. First thing I'm doing is watching some film and rewatching the November game, the February game, and then I will have to sit there and watch that April 2nd game again. So going to be just watching film all day tomorrow, watching Game 7, and then maybe go live tomorrow night. Not sure. Probably not. But certainly go live on Sunday. We'll be doing my official Lakers Thunder series preview with Crangus. We'll be talking through big questions and X factors and making our series predictions. So be on the lookout for that. I am at the finish line for the Buha's Block merch. In fact, if you want to know a little bit secret, you made it this far. Over 900 of you made it to the 2.5 hour mark of the show. The merch is actually live right now. I did quietly go live today. I wanted to launch it on Monday instead of today, but Lakers won. So I see I did miss a super chat. So Andrew H, thank you for super chat. Rui's games like this make me want to re-sign him, but I would love to get Tari Watson, even if it means we lose Rui. Yeah, Rui, I said this after Game 5, and this was coming off of not the best Rui game, but I think the issue with Rui from like a roster perspective is when you're in that 6'8", 6'9" range, you want, if you look at the other, like think about some of the guys that are playing big roles across the league in that range, and just even take the Denver Minnesota series. And it's like, look at Randall and look at Gordon and look at Watson and look at McDaniels and look at Reed. You need to be able to do one of two things when you're 6'8", 6'9". You either need to be a really good defender or you need to be a really good rebounder. And unfortunately, Rui doesn't check either of those boxes. If we wanted to nitpick in this series, like he averaged 4 rebounds per game in 39 minutes per game, like should be a better rebounder than he is. Now I think he boxes out well, and that doesn't always reflect with the rebounding stuff, but like still it's hard to be a 6'8" athletic forward and only average 4 rebounds per game. So Tari Eason, I think he's going to make more money than Rui, but I'm not even like, there's some basketball IQ stuff with him, plus the shooting that, I don't know. I think I might prefer Rui, especially at a lower number. Watson, I think, is a no-brainer that you would take Watson over Rui. I just think he's a better overall player. He's better. I mean, I think he's a better shot creator, better scorer, better rebounder, better defender, higher motor, more athletic. Like, just checks basically every box outside of the shooting, which is important. And that's where Rui, I mean, anytime we talk about Rui versus other guys, it's like he's always going to win the shooting battle, and shooting is so important. But it's just, I think there is a roster limitation ultimately. Like having Luka and Austin, you do need a certain amount of athleticism and length and defense around those guys. And we've seen it. I mean, you go back to like the 2023 run that the Lakers had, it was AD and Vando and like those guys supporting Austin in terms of like having Austin be a prominent role on a good team. And then you look at Luka in 2024 in that group with Gafford and Lively and Washington and Jones and, et cetera. It's like you need athletes and you need defenders, and the Lakers are at a deficit with that. And if they're paying Rui a certain amount, it does affect the roster. But so I think between him and Eason, I'd actually probably lean Rui. Him and Watson, I think it's Watson, no brainer. But I am wrapping here. The merch is live. I'll give you guys, I could just show you for a second here. 1 second. Merch is live. So we got t-shirts, we got regular t-shirts, we got boxy t-shirts, we got hoodies, we got mugs, we got notebooks, we got stickers, we got magnets. So got a bunch of stuff. It's officially live. jovanbuha-shop.fourthwall.com. I will link it below and talk about it officially on Monday. We'll do a more formal announcement with it. But if you guys are asking for the link, I can put it in the chat right here. Eric Dane says, hurry up, guys. Who wants to be the first one to buy the Buha's Block underwear? That's not ready yet, but maybe I have to do an underwear shoot at some point. And Connor Phillips asks, how long will the drops be active? They are active for the foreseeable future. No changes. Like, one of the cool things with this company I'm working with is it is made to order. So they handle the manufacturing, they handle the shipping, they handle customer service, and then they just take a cut of the cost of the products. But and also I'll say with everything I've ordered everything, I've tested it all out, and I also have tried to make everything as cheap as possible. So like everything has a minimum cost of like, this is how much it costs to make it. And so like everything is basically like a little bit above that cost. So I wanted to keep it as low as I could for you guys. I didn't want to be charging like $70 for a t-shirt or something like some of the merch out there. So appreciate you guys. It is officially up. And yeah, Lakers are moving on to round 2, and I'm excited to preview the series. I'm excited to cover the series, and excited to see what happens. But shout out to the Late Night Gang. Shout out to the chat. I will talk to you all on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your evenings.